We met the man on the photo. He lives in South India, close to the rebel monastery, with 10 other disciples. He too has declared war. He has just filed a complaint against the Dalai Lama at the Indian High Court on grounds of religious persecution. Demons operating with China against the Dalai Lama, authoritarian and aggressive. War has been declared and the collateral victims are already numerous, struck even in their exile. In India, the worshippers of the Shugden deity are forced to go into hiding. This old woman had to flee her village because she felt threatened. She found shelter 300 kilometers away from her place, in this family.
I took all my baggage, locked my house, and fled 3 days ago. I had no choice being the lone Shugden in my village. I have had a lot of problems. I couldn't sleep before 2 o'clock at night. I had to lock the door and place heavy rocks and wood against it to be sure no one could attack me. I kept locking my door so many times.
Before, we also used to have faith in him, in Dalai Lama. Even we all had faith in him. But now she feels like every one of us feel that, if he's really Buddha, if he's really God, he won't create so much problem, he won't give us so much trouble, he won't, I believe if he's a Buddha, he won't give any problem to one, any human being, so we feel that, I think all of us have changed our mind now. We don't see him as we have seen him earlier, like,
They have been practicing this faith in private, far away from political considerations, but now politics have caught up with them. Behind this witch hunt of Shugdens lies the fear of Chinese infiltration in the ranks of the Tibetan refugees, and the looming threat of a schism dangerous for the fight for the autonomy of Tibet.
Well, joining me in the studio is one of the reporters behind that story, Capucine Henri. Capucine, tell us a bit more about the political side of the Dalai Lama that you discovered.
The whole world knows His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who speaks of duality, Buddhism, the spiritual figure. But the Dalai Lama is also a political figure. He's at the head of the Tibetan government in exile in Dharamsala in India. He's a political leader of 100,000 Tibetans who live in India since '59. So it's not very Buddhist what I'm going to say, but the Tibetan government in exile is at war with China. And to be more politically correct, I might say that the Chinese leaders are the opponents of the Dalai Lama, who finds it very difficult to accept that within his own community of followers there are Tibetan Buddhists who are related to China. But there is a community of Tibetan Buddhists who is linked to China. They are called the Dorje Shugden community because they follow a god or a figure of the traditional Tibetan Buddhism. And it's through them that I realized that the Dalai Lama is a political leader, because instead of actually negotiating with China, the Dalai Lama started banning them. He forbid these people to follow their own cult. He asked his own people to stop having any connection with the people who follow the Dorje Shugden cult. He said that his movement actually jeopardized the unity of the Tibetan people. So very concretely, what did he do? He circulated petitions to India in monasteries and Tibetan communities, and he asked the people to choose between the Dorje Shugden community and his community. Those who decided to run against him and follow the Dorje Shugden community are banned by the Dalai Lama. That's what we're going to see right now.
So one interesting aspect, of course, is that the Dalai Lama, of course, also accuses the Shugden community of having links with China. Is there anything in that?
Yes, quite so. The Dorje Shugden community does have ties with China, political ties. They're closer, politically speaking, to the Chinese political power than to the Dalai Lama. They've actually accepted the fact that Tibet is a Chinese province, and they have accepted that they are Chinese. But there are many people who actually believe that in Tibet and in exile. In France, we always tend to associate Tibet to the Dalai Lama, but there are many Tibetans who are Buddhists who think that China actually contributed something to Tibet. Now, let us not forget that the Dalai Lama went to India 50 years ago, and that in India there's a whole generation of Tibetans who grew up with the Chinese, and they think that the Chinese did contribute something to Tibet.
So, very, very briefly, just how taboo is it to criticize the Dalai Lama?
It is very taboo. Actually, our shooting of the reportage was very difficult because we had our camera smashed in, and the Dalai Lama is considered as a living god. He has achieved, well, supposedly, a level of clairvoyance that makes every decision he takes a rule of law. If you criticize the Dalai Lama, you are judged to be a Chinese spy and somebody who runs against the cause of Tibet.
Capucine Henri, thank you very much indeed for that fascinating look from India behind the Tibetan community there. That's it for now. More reporters next week.